Welcome to our class on Chassidus. We're going to be learning a beautiful, deep Chassidic discourse from the Rebbe. The name of the Chassidic discourse is called Ata Echad. The Rebbe said this Chassidic discourse on Shabbos Parshas Witzא, which was the 9th of Kislev, right before the 10th of Kislev, in the year Tafshin Mem Beis, 43 years ago. The Rebbe went on to certify and edit this Chassidic discourse in honor of the 9th and the 10th of Kislev in the year Tafshin Mem Zayin, 38 years ago. It's a different discourse than the one we learned last week, even though it's the same title and it's the same verse. So it's based on what we say in the prayers in Shabbat afternoon by Mincha, where it says, Ata Echad, you Hashem are one, v'shimcha echad, your name Hashem is one, umi ka'amcha Yisrael, and who is like the Jewish people, goy echad ba'aretz, one nation in the world. So the Rebbe brings from the Winkler Rebbe, who is celebrating commemorating his yahrzeit of the 9th of Kislev, and also was celebrating the fact that he was redeemed from prison for teaching and spreading Chassidus on the 10th day of Kislev, in a classic Chassidic discourse of his with this same title, Ata Echad. And there said it seems that this Chassidic discourse, Ata Echad, the Winkler Rebbe said on his last Shabbat when he was in prison. Very powerful. Which was Shabbos Parshas Witzא, the 9th of Kislev in the year Tov Kuf Pei Zayin. And he said this before Mincha, because normally the Chassidic discourse said after Mincha. He said it before Mincha. And he explains over there as follows, that this prayer that we say in the prayers, Ata Echad, the Shimcha Echad, Mi Kam K'Yisrael G'Yach Ba'aretz. So over here it's explained the three different strands of the Sfirot of Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes on 4 levels. What's the 4 levels? It's referring to the 4 levels, which is including all the levels of Ishtalshus, the way things flow, but starting from before the Tzimzum, before the contraction, means before we had the ability to create worlds and so on and so forth. So he explains over there as follows. Ata Echad, the Shimcha Echad, Mi Kam K'Yisrael G'Yach Ba'aretz. They're referring to the 3 strands of Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. That is referring to the first level of the way it's before the Tzimzum. In other words, even before the Tzimzum, so even though it's before the Tzimzum, you don't have Sfirot, but there is already a division of 3 different lines, and from there you have the ability that later on, after the Tzimzum, you're able to have actually 3 different lines of Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. So again, the first part, Ata Echad v'shimcha echad, is referring to Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. On what level? Before the Tzimzum, where on whatever level you're supposed to be able to have the potential for the division of these 3 ideas. Then when the prayer continues on to say, Tiferet Gedula, V'ateret Yeshua, Yoim Menucha Kedusha La'amcha Nasata. So that's again the 3 lines of Chesed, Gevura, of Tiferes, the way it's after the Tzimzum, after the contraction of light. But obviously we're dealing with the worlds which are infinite, which is again higher than Atzilut yet. So far we learned about the 3 levels before the Tzimzum, after that Tzimzum, and not even touching Atzilut yet. And therefore there's no limitation, because the fact is, in the world of Atzilut, already you have, the lights are infinite, but the vessels already are finite. And that's why it says in this level, where it's talking about after the Tzimzum, before Atzilut, it says, La'amcha Nasanta, to your nation it was given, because when someone gives, that you give without making any changes. It means there's technically no change between before the Tzimtzum and after the Tzimtzum, and they're both technically like infinite. Afterwards it goes on to say, Avram Yagel, and it says, Menuchas, Ava, Nadav, etc. So he's referring to the 3 different strands of Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, the way they're in the world of Atzilut. So far we learned before the Tzimtzum, after that Tzimtzum, and in Atzilut, because Atzilut is already finite. Like we know it says, in the world of Atzilut, there's 10 Sfirot. And it's 10, it's not 9, it's not 11, etc. And in the world of Atzilut itself, there's 2 levels. First it says, Avram Yagel, Yitzchok Iran, and Yaakov Avanav Yunuchavai. So that's already referring to the 3 levels of Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes of Atzilus. And then it says, Menuchas Ava, Unadava, Menuchas Menuchas emes v'muna, menuchas shalom hashka v'etach, is referring to the three sfirot of Netzach, Hoy, Yesoid, of Atzilus, and like he explains over there at length in that Hasidic discourse. Okay, just to recap before we go forward. So what he's saying is that in this prayer, you have the three ideas of Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, one before the Tzimzum, the second one after the Tzimzum, the third is in Atzilut, and then in Atzilus you have the Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, and Netzach, Hoy, Yesoid, you have four levels. Okay. Based on what it's known in the Chassidic discourses of the Chabad Rebbeim, that every single detail in the Chassidic discourse, even when they're said, is very specific. So he'd like to connect these four levels. Like we said, before the Tzimzum, after the Tzimzum, in Atzilus, the Chagas, the Chesed Feres, and then in Atzilus, Netzach Yisoid, he would like to connect it with this week's Torah portion of Parshas Vayetze, that you can say, obviously when the Rebbe said the Chassidic discourse, that the reason why he said in Shabbos Parshas Vayetze, because the verse says, V'hinei sulam mutzav arza. There's a ladder that's laying on the ground, standing on the ground, but Roisha in the head is reaching in heaven. What is that referring to? And we all know in the world of Chassidus, the ladder is referring to the ladder of prayer. Like we know it says in the Zohar, Sulam. What is Sulam in the Zohar? It says, Datzalaisa, that's prayer. In other words, that in prayer there's four levels. There's four levels of prayer. So you can say that the four levels of prayer, besides the fact that we know that the four levels of prayer are referring to the four worlds of Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, like it's explained many, many places, but it's also connected the four levels to these four levels of before the Tzimzum, after the Tzimzum, Atzilus, and the two levels of Atzilus means all the different levels of all the different worlds, obviously starting from the before the Tzimzum. Now he continues on the Chassidic discourse, the Mittler Rebbe, that it says Menucha Shleima, complete rest, Sha'ata Roitzaba, that you Hashem want, and it was after he explains the three levels of Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes on all the four levels before the Tzimtzum, after the Tzimtzum, and Atzilut, and the two levels of Atzilus. So when he says Menucha Shleima, that's referring to the completion of everything. What is the completion of everything? And I'll say it in Hebrew. I'll translate Achdus Hapshuta, the pure oneness, which is higher than three, because three, yeah, it's amazing, all these levels, but it's still three. So what is Menucha Shleima? Actus Pshuta, the pure oneness, and it's higher than even the source of the three levels, the way they are before the Tzimtzum. So we're going very, very deep. The highest level, very, very high. And this powerful level of Actus Pshuta, he says, Yakiru Vanecha V'yedu, that your children will recognize and know. What is Banecha referring to? It's referring souls in the body. That souls in the body, we have the power to yakir, to recognize, and to know even this powerful level. We have the power to connect to the highest level, Achdus Pshuta. Now, how can we do that? Because Because where does the rest and relaxation come from? It comes from Hashem. Because the rest on Shabbos comes from the itcha, from the essence of Hashem. And because it comes from the essence of Hashem, we have the power to reach that level. Rabbi says he'd like to connect this with what it's known, that the explanation of Ki mi'itcha, that from you Hashem is coming the rest of Shabbos. So mi'itcha is made up of several letters. What is the several letters? Me'itcha is mem aleph saf chaf. Rabbi says me'itcha is two words. Mem aleph saf is me'es from chaf. What is chaf? It's coming from chaf is keter. And from there, from the level of keter, the highest level, that's where it comes to rest and relaxation. In other words, just like when it comes to when the way the worlds flow from one level to the next, you have the four worlds: Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And where does everything start? It starts in the world of Atzilut. But we know that Keter is higher than the Shtalshlus. So the same thing also in these four levels, which is similar to Atzilus, Bria, Asiya, and Asiya, obviously on a higher level, that the beginning of all this, obviously it comes from Chesed Gvur first, like we explained before. It comes from before the Tzimzum, which is basically the Atzilut. There's the Atzilut in the world, but then there's Atzilut, the Klal, which is before the Tzimzum, is the level of what? Keter. And over there is you have the infinite part of Hashem, which is higher than Chesed Gvur the first of Ein Sof, and that is considered the deepest level of Me'itcha of Hashem. Shabbos says to explain this is as follows. That what? That we're going to explain now that the rest of Shabbos, which basically is reaching Achdus Pshuta, comes Me'itcha from Hashem himself, which we said is the idea of Keser. So what does that mean? Because the fact is the rest, the true rest, and Shabbos comes from where? From the essential part of our soul. What is the most deepest essential part of our soul? We know Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida comes from Yechida. And like he explains in the Chassidic discourse, that's the reason that the rest on Shabbos, everybody rests the same way. Powerful. There's no difference between a great person and a simple person, an adult, a child. Everybody rests the same way. In other words, what does that mean? When it comes to prayer, some people meditate more, some people meditate less, some people have the ability, have the capacity for more, some for less. So there's a difference. When it comes to eating on Shabbos, different people eat differently on Shabbat. And not only physically, and also spiritually. Like we know the great tzaddikim, it's a whole different level than a simple person. They have all the meditations and so on and so forth. But when it comes to sleeping, menucha, everyone sleeps the same way. Why? Because when it comes to the yechida, the oneness of our soul, everyone's equal. There's no, my yechida is bigger, smaller. No, yechida is all the same to everybody. And therefore it's complete by everybody, even anybody. The highest people, the lowest people, everyone's the same level. And that's why it says, Me'itcha, from Hashem himself is the rest, because the resting on Shabbos comes from Me'itcha mamash, from the essence of Hashem himself. Because the revelation of the completion of everything, which we said is higher than the different strands and the all different levels, even the way it's before the Tzimzum, comes from Hashem himself, and it comes from where? From the level of Yechida. Now why is that? Never explains like this. We know the 4 levels of the soul under Yechida, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Chaya, they're connected to the 4 worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And even higher, on the 4 levels of the general flow, like we learned before, that includes even before the Tzimzum. So the 4 different levels of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, is connected either to Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, or to 2 levels in Atzilus, after the Tzimzum, before the Tzimzum. But Yechida is much higher than all these 4 levels, whether it's the Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya, or it's before the Tzimzum, after the Tzimzum, and 2 levels in Atzilus. Yechida is much higher. And not only that, it's even higher than the level of, we know Makif, where half is over, it's even higher than the level of Makif. There's 2 different levels of Makif. So it's even higher than the level of Makif of bias of a house. Why? Because many places it's brought down that Chaya, the part of the soul, is compared to the Makif of a garment. So it hovers over you, but it fits you. And then Yechida is connected to the idea of Makif of a house. It hovers over you, but it's not that everyone fits in together. But in that Chassidic discourse, and also in many places in Chassidus, it says that Yechida is higher than even the Makif of a house. So why is that? Because when it comes to a house, and even though it's much more encompassing everyone, and it's not tailor-made more than a garment, but the fact is Yechida can't dwell in there. And where does Yechida dwell? In like something which is much further away than bias, more than the further part of a house to a person. And over there specifically, Yechida couldn't dwell. And that's why the level of Yechida has the power to reveal the infinite part of Hashem, which is again higher than the level of Chesed Gvur Tferes before the Tzimtzum. And that's why he says, Ki mi'itcha, from you himself is a menuchas, and the ability to have spiritual relaxation on Shabbat. Why? Because since when it comes to Shabbos, the rest in Shabbos is coming from the Yechida, therefore it's connected what? To the level of Itcha. Now he explains over there in the Chassidic discourse that the Anshe Knesses HaGdoila, the great assembly of the Jewish people, they are the ones that establish that we should say this powerful prayer, Ata Echad. Why is that? Because the Knesses HaGdoila, this great assembly, what is that? That's the great assembly of the Jewish people. And all the levels of Ishtalshalos, like in the 4 levels that's part of this prayer, which we get, and again, to recap, 2 levels of Atzilos after the Tzimtzum, before the Tzimtzum, was given over to the Knesset HaGdolah, the great assembly, and from this powerful great assembly, it was given over to the souls of the Jewish people. What type of souls? The souls that are in our body. That we have the power to say and draw down every one of these 4 levels. Starting from the level of Ata Echad, which is referring to what? Chesed of before the Tzimtzum. As we said, Chesed Gvur Tferes of 2 levels of Atzilut, after the Tzimtzum, before the Tzimtzum. When we're praying on Ata Echad, we have the power to draw down Chesed from where? From before the Tzimtzum. What is that level of Chesed? That is the level of Chesed where Hashem used to create the world. Like it says, the Teva HaTov Lahetiv. The nature of Hashem is good is to do good because because He wants to do good. And we have the power to draw down on Shabbos afternoon. And that's why in the Torah it says, V'asisem oisam. So normally it should be read, if it's oisam, it should be aleph vav saf final mem, and it doesn't say the vav. It says aleph saf mem, which means oisam them. We should do them the mitzvot, but it says without the vav. What does that mean? Why does it say without the vav? Because we don't say oisam, but we say atem. V'asisam atem. You should do it. What does that mean? Hashem is saying no, as if you have the power to make it happen. You can force it to happen. We literally can force something to happen, just like you force something to take place. And so to speak, Hashem is saying, you have the power to force me, to bring down the level of chesed, gevurah, tiferes, even from the part that's the infinite part before the Tzimzum. Now, how do we have the power to do that? How do we have the power to draw down? Because the source of our souls are in the infinite part of Hashem, and which is even higher than chesed, gevurah, tiferes of the infinite part of Hashem. And after the soul comes into the body, guess what? That power shines within us. Where? Not in every part of us, in our Yechida. So when we connect to the Yechida, we can connect to the source, and therefore when we connect to the source, we have the power to draw down all these three levels, and from all the four levels down into this world. So based on Shabbat says something very powerful. Now we'll understand why this Hasidic discourse of Ata Echad, which as you see, it's a very powerful discourse. You're bringing down powerful energy into this world. When did? Because the Rebbe said that there's a reason why the Mittler Rebbe said it when he said it is because it was on Shabbos Parshas Witzä, and he did it before the prayer of Mincha. Because even though that generally speaking, when the Rebbeim said Hasidic discourses on the time of Raven, the Raven Mincha time, that they would say it after Mincha. Here he said it before. Why? Because by saying the Hasidic discourse of Ata Echad, he was affecting drawing down all those four levels when he did it. Now we know since everything in order for anything to come down to this world, how do we have the power to bring things down? You need Torah. Torah is the tool to draw things down. So therefore, before he said the prayer on Tfilas Mincha, which is again to bring down these powerful levels, he wanted to do it by saying a Torah thought about it. And since drawing down these four levels through by saying Ata Echad comes from the fact that the source of our soul is in the infinite part of Hashem, which is Yechida. So therefore, in the teaching of Torah that he said, he was able to bring it down the way it exists on the spiritual level, in the way it's brought down in Chassidut. And since Pnimiyus Torah is done in a way of, it should be expanded upon, like the Chassidus Chabad way explains everything, which is basically the level of the Yechida of the Torah. That's why he said it, when he said it before the prayer, so through Torah we're able to bring down these powerful levels. So you can say that this is also the connection of saying this Chassidic discourse for the last Shabbat, when he was in prison. Why? Which basically was the day before he was released from prison, because we know the Rebbe says that through the imprisonment, which is obviously not a good thing, but what happened through the imprisonment, what accomplished was a great thing happened because of it. And like we were taught the teaching Chazal that when you have an olive, when you crush the olive, that's when it brings out the oil. You can have these beautiful olives, and guess what? If you look at it and you talk to it and you sing to it and you massage it, nothing happens. But when you crush it, you break the olive, what happens? You have olive oil. So the same thing also, by being crushed and going to prison, great things happen. Now, even though, what do you mean? The fact is, before the Winkler went to prison, he was already teaching Chassidus and he was spreading Chassidus. But nevertheless, through going to prison, there was actually a tremendous upgrade. And now the Rebbe said you can not only use an upgrade you can't even compare to before the prison. And like the Chazal tell us, by crushing the olive, you give nois and shamna, you give. And we know when you give with abundance and with a good eye. And the tremendous upgrade that was accomplished through, unfortunately, the Mittler going into prison. We'll understand that based on what's explained in the different talks of the previous Rebbe in reference to the imprisonment of the Alter Rebbe, and obviously the same applies to the Mittler Rebbe, that the fact is when he went to prison, he agreed to it. In other words, the Mittler Rebbe agreed, he allowed himself to go to prison. Why? Because the fact is, Rebbe is something very, very powerful. Every single tzaddik, every single righteous person, he rules over anything that's happening to his materialistic and physical life. And everything that happened to him, he agreed to it. And the fact that he agreed to go to prison, even though it involved tremendous pain and suffering. And while he was in prison, he wasn't able to teach Chassidus and spread mysticism when he was sitting in prison. So you see that the tremendous value of spreading Chassidus that happened after he was redeemed. And matter of fact, up to the point that it was worth it, so to speak. And that's the connection between saying this Chassidic discourse on the day before he was released, because what got revealed then, what got revolutionized something then, is a great, powerful revelation of mysticism. What got revealed was the Yechidah, the oneness of the Torah. And it got revealed in a revealed way that we're able to comprehend it and understand it. Up to the point that this revelation was not only in the level of Chachma and Bina, the first two levels of intellect, but even in the level of Das. Because we know the source of Das is in Pnimiyat HaKeser, and like explained at length in the Chassidic discourse of Tafresh Ayin, or Eter, it's called the real power of Das that reaches the highest level, reaches the level of Yechidah. And that's why it says, Yakiru Vanecha, that your children will recognize, the Yedu, they will know, Ki Me'itcha, from you Hashem Himenuchasam. Where's our relaxation come from, our peace come from? It comes from Hashem. In other words, the revelation of the Yechidah, of our Neshama, which comes from Hashem himself. Where does that come from? It comes specifically through the sphere of Das. Like it says, Yakiru, we will know, V'yedu, we will know through the sphere of Das. And that's why it says, the Mashiach is going to come. The expression is, Yelame Das. He's going to teach Das, the third level of it, not only Chacham Bida, but Das, to every single person, with comprehending what the secrets of the Chassidus, the Pnimius of Torah. And he uses the term specifically Das. Why? Because what is the major revolution that's going to be revolutionized when Mashiach comes? And it's like the Rambam says in his book, and the end of his book, and he uses the verse that says, Ki mala ha'aretz, the whole world we fill with what? Deas Hashem. Hashem is going to be revealed, but Dea, we're going to have the ability to comprehend godliness. And they specifically use the term Dea, Das. And this revelation is going to be in a way of Kamayim Layam Achasim, just like water covers everything over. And it's going to be, besides the fact that we're going to have the Das, but it's also going to be, you're going to be able to see it literally. Just like the water, that you're able to see the water. The water covers everything over and you see the water. You know, it's explained many, many places about the creations that exist in the concealed world, which is obviously a world that's under the water. So it's just like, for example, you have fish that's in the sea, that the fish is basically totally nullified to the water, up to the point that you don't even see the fish. And what do you see? You just see the water, because they don't have their own identity. They're totally they're willing to do whatever the water wants. So the same thing also when it says Kamayim Liyam Achasim is, which means that the world, we're going to be able to see literally the revelation of Hashem in a revealed way. Just like we see the water, we're going to see Hashem. Just like that the water covers up everything that's inside, but you see obviously the water, we will have the power not only to know Hashem, but we will also have the power to see Hashem. And Rebbe finishes off something very powerful, and he says as follows: it should be the will of Hashem. By learning this Torah, these teachings of the Torah, we're going to come very, very soon to fulfillment of the promise. And it's going to be in a real way, that from a place of real, true menucha, true relaxation, true peace, and from a place of simcha v'tuv levav, joy and gladness of heart, we're going to go to the true redemption and the complete redemption that's going to come about through the Mashiach Tzidkenu, our righteous Messiah. And then what we're going to have is Malla ha'aretz Deas Hashem. The whole world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, Kamayim layam machasim, just like water that covers everything over. Here you have another very powerful Chassidic discourse of the Rebbe, deep stuff. But here you see the power that we have. We have the power to reach the most highest levels and draw down the most greatest energies of chesed into this world, and we obviously have the power to do it. And like Deborah finished off, and he says, ultimately we'll have the ultimate fulfillment where God is going to be revealed. And let's hope and pray our next class will be in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. Have a great and blessed week. Shavua Tov.